Today, we are privileged to have a very experienced panel representing the private sector and the government as well, that will lead us through this very interesting discussion.
Before the devolution, planning used to be central, and decisions used to be done at the central locations, but the real beneficiary of the data never had a say. That has changed. So I'll take you through what there is in the current dispensation. The planning which informs the budget, county budgeting, is not one man's business. It is the business of the county citizens, and it is the business that is guaranteed under the Constitution, that before anything passes within the county government, citizens must be involved. There is the County Government Act 2012, which has to be adhered very, very closely. There is also the Transition to Devolved Government Act 2012, also has some stipulations on the planning that is required. There is also the Public Finance and Management Act, the famous PFM, that guides the way the public finances are used within the national government and the county governments. There is also the Intergovernmental Relations Act that stipulates or directs how the planning between the national government and the county government and the relationship between the national government and the county government needs to be done. Having said that, then let's look at the data needs. In all these, you realize that they're driven by data. And this data has to be available in the form and veracity that is required to make these decisions. When there is the issue of data, comes the issue of data being raised by various quarters. One, the holder of the data will ask about the confidentiality. Whoever data belongs to, be it my biodata, medical data, my investment data, my question is, how confidential is it with the holder of that data? The opportunities for ICT is one in the digitization and making sure that these records and data are in a threat format that people can actually use and access it. It is for them to actually make sure that we have infrastructure, proper infrastructure to be able to interlink all these data. In terms of data collections, it's for the IC to provide tools that can actually collect data real-time in digital formats. It is for the ICT to come up with data centers, and these data centers are not to be within each county, but one either at the national level or at the regional level, whereby counties can actually leverage on the same, and at the shared data centers, they can actually use it for disaster recovery and business continuity.
I'd also like to hear from the perspective of somebody within county government, and I'm going to invite Gladys to respond to that presentation by Joseph.
I would say a lot about the national government and the data it holds, and the devolved units and the data they need, and what can be done with that data. But let me start by saying that when devolution happened, I think a lot of these things were still being done. The national government was collecting data all over, in the lands registry, in the lands dockets, the agriculture, the health, and all those dockets. So the fact that now we have devolved units, to me, I do not think we need to make it sound like we are starting afresh, like these are really fresh entities that are coming up. It's just one nation, but now the system of governance is what has changed. So for me, I think the issues of data, data is something that has always been there. And now we find ourselves in a situation where counties are devolved and they have to take charge of their own data. Now, the question is, where do you start as a county government? Are you starting afresh? Are you building on what is already there? Is the national government sharing the data that would enable county governments to start from somewhere in terms of planning and being able to even allocate resources and generate, you know, all the plans that Kuria has shown. We will generate them, but are we getting the data that we need as county governments, data that already the national government should have, so that we do not have to start from scratch? I appreciate the role of national government and on what they have done so far, but I think they should have done more in terms of starting up the counties with the already existing data, so that, because we are not definitely starting on a clean slate. We are starting from somewhere, but sometimes I get the impression that we are made to feel that, I mean, you're starting, where is your data?
The simple question is, what do you do with the data that you have? And the governments that we've seen, or the county governments that we've worked with, who have started somewhere and started with an agenda that says, we have something we can do. How is it going to change what we do with applying technology to that? And remember, data just doesn't materialize. Data is manufactured. And whether it's manufactured by a machine, whether it's manufactured by an individual, or manufactured by an agency and published, it's manufactured. So the simple request and the simple progress, I think, where the more progressive agencies or the more progressive counties are looking at what we term as veracity. Do I trust it? Or how much do I trust it? And am I willing to make a decision based on the truth that I perceive out of this data, and then ask for what they need next? So our suggestion is take what you have, assess the usefulness of it, assess how much you actually trust it, and start your first project. Then determine what the projects are beyond that.
So in terms of revenue and improving collections, I think the first thing to appreciate is that the county government model is a very interesting model that places a huge responsibility on a county. If you had a business that had under its charge cemeteries, libraries, healthcare facilities like clinics, you were also responsible for piping, you were also responsible for roads, you were also responsible for entertainment, and you were responsible for contributing towards regulation. As the CEO of that company, you'd probably have lots of stressful nights. The truth of it is, because of the extent and scope of any county government, county governments have to be a lot smarter about the manner in which it utilizes systems, because there's no way in hell any county government can ever make accurate decisions or ever attempt to make any good decision to improve collections and reduce costs in the absence of sound data. And data is just the product of systems. You know, if a pipe bursts inside the county, you need to dispatch a technician out to fix the pipe. He's going to pick up the pipe from a store. What if he takes 2 pipes instead of 1? And he does that each and every single time he goes out to repair a pipe that needs to be fixed inside the city. That's adding a cost burden into the city on an ongoing basis. You will find that in some cities that I visit, the individuals are actually going and selling their parts or doing private jobs on the side, utilizing the city stores or the county stores. Now, that's just one example of how the introduction of a system that just issues a job ticket to the technician and has an inventory management on every item inside the stores, that alone will significantly save the city money. And then on the flip side of that, if you have, every county has a certain percentage of non-revenue water, for example, where water is being distributed, but there's no collections on the back of that water. And if you just improved a better system where you monitor your SCADA systems more effectively, you could immediately improve revenues just by tracking the consumption of water more accurately. So there's a huge business case, speaking with an investment banker hat, there's a huge business case for a county to track transactional data a lot more, just to impact the bottom line.
In Kenya, we talk of Vision 2030, but then as we sit here, who are we planning for? Who will be there in 2030? Who are the people that we need to plan for? And I would also want to say that this is a focus that is also very key and being talked about by the global development partners. And they are telling us in Kenya, as in other third world countries, that it is difficult to have effective planning without data, that just assuming or thinking that things are the way you see them is not right. I am in charge of civil registration, and civil registration is the department that registers births and deaths that take place in the country. And getting complete coverage of these two events is completely important in planning, both at the national level and also at the county level. We call them vital events because they are really vital. One marks the time one enters the world, and the next one, when one exits. So births and deaths data is very important, and it serves a very important role. It's supposed to inform health, economic, and social policies for good governance and accountability. We would recommend, especially at the county level, that this data is used to determine the number of health facilities that are required, the ones that Mr. Kuria talked about, the number of educational facilities. This data is there. Let me also talk about the death data. Death data is extremely important because it shows the mortality trends. We also include the cost of data in our reporting. If some of you have gotten death certificates, you'll be able to see. Why cost of death data? It is important because when we share this data with the health players, with the planners in the health sector, they will be able to come up with appropriate interventions before diseases or epidemics get out of control. So for me, I generate data which is vital and which I'm proposing that it be used by yourselves as actors within the county governments.
We're going to open up the session for questions, and I see some very eager hands.
How can I get access to that data? Because you said, you brought a really key point here, saying that the counties have not yet shown any interest. It is because it's only private sector, such as represented by myself, that can package that value for them. So how is it possible for companies like myself to come in, or what are the channels and the processes for us to come in and get what you call a fire hose into that data? Then you're able to provision that same data to, the business cases are many.
The report that we released last year was quite bulky, quite huge, and we were aware that many business people, especially the executives, would not read it. That's why we also came up with a summarized version of the same, but I would strongly propose that you look at the detailed one, because that's where you get all the details pertaining to your accounting.
For the panelists, maybe you can now share your closing thoughts. I've had the word partnerships come up quite a lot.
I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity to share the kind of data that we generate to people who need it on the ground for purposes of their planning. Because when people at the lowest level in the counties, in this devolved dispensation that we are in, if they get proper information, they are planned for, we have efficient programs, then I think and I believe that all of us will be winners, because poverty will be eradicated, disease will also be contained, and you have a healthy and vibrant population without which no development can take place.
If I hear what Gladys said about the availability of data from the old regime, and then Joyce being here happens to present one example of a huge volume of data that's currently available but not being consumed by the counties. Now, we can guess at why the counties are not consuming these data sets, but one of the hypotheses that I would put forward to you is that perhaps no one wants raw data. We all want intelligence that we can make decisions from. Because if I just give you a massive database or a spreadsheet with millions and millions and millions of names in it, it's probably going to be meaningless to anyone in the room. So what we need is we need to perform some kind of analysis or intelligence on that raw data. Raw data really is, in truth, meaningless. It doesn't have checks on it. It's just, a collection of rows and columns.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And I believe that the county governments have taken that first step. And it's not all gloom. There are county governments like Kiambu who have done very well. That's what I know. Nairobi County, they're doing also very good. And I believe that if we can have forums whereby the county government can share these successes, I believe the learning curve for the other counties that are lagging behind can also pace up. The other thing is to say that together you can achieve more, but as an individual, you can only go too far. It's the high time that the counties actually harness their synergies. It is the issue of the data centers. They can do very well to actually come up with one common data center, based either in a region, that will still act as their data recovery.
Like you've heard, we are developing ICT roadmaps at the counties, and it would be good for the maybe private partners to get to find out once the roadmaps are through, where can you come in? Because it was important for us to say, where do we go from where we are? Because a lot of people came in when the counties started, and selling a lot of stuff, and it was hard for the counties to decide, some counties, where do I take this now, or is it something I'll need 10 years from now? But with the roadmaps, it will make it very clear for us and for the partners as well that this is where we want to start from, and 5 years down the line, this is where we want to be, and it's easier for you to come in.
I wrote a note down here that said the county problems that you're having are not unlike the problems that we had in the United States over 200 years ago. We can sit here and look at what you're doing and say, wow, there's so much more you could do. But all countries go through growing pains, all organizations go through growing pains. So look how far you've come, and take that as a standing point and move forward from there with accelerated pace. There are technologies that can help you. There are standard principles that can help you. There are guidelines that are being formed. Take advantage of them, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to all the panelists as well. Thank you.